grossly mismanaged Planting for Food and Jobs program. We're grappling with treasury bill rates of about 30% as local investors in our financial instruments suffer huge risks associated with lending to government. We're also experiencing massive reverse capital flows, with investors losing confidence in our economy and pulling out their resources in droves. It is estimated that as much as $2 billion have been taken out of our economy by investors who fear the West since the beginning of this crisis. Cote d'Ivoire and other neighboring countries have become the latest operational destination for many of these international investors, while others have pulled out completely from Ghana and West Africa. These are not just abstract numbers or vague data. They offer a bird's eye view of the state of our economy and translate into our everyday lives and our everyday struggles and suffering. They underscore our reality and the devastation millions of Ghanaians' households are facing and going through. Ladies and gentlemen, the daily price increases, unending fuel price adjustments, ever-rising inflation, a fast depreciating currency, corruption, arrogant and insensitive leadership, and the waste of scarce resources have all combined to make life simply unbearable for the generality of Ghanaians. Prices of items including everyday medication, salt, gari, and cooking oil are constantly on the rise. If you do not buy an item at a particular point in time, you are likely to find that the price has significantly increased a few hours later when you go back to the shop. The mortgage market is collapsing and is threatening the financial plans of many Ghanaian households. Mothers suffer heartbreak each day because they cannot afford to feed the children like they used to. Countless young people with enormous potential are struggling to pursue their lifelong dreams because of financial problems. Small entrepreneurs are struggling to break even and are suffering to keep their businesses open against great odds. This is not just an installment in cyclical hardship, and we should not pretend that it is. Investments have been lost, businesses have been destroyed, the pharmaceutical sector threatens to increase prices further and are threatening to reintroduce the obnoxious cash and carry system. People have been struck by sickness and are unable to seek medical attention due to prohibitive costs, and regrettably some of them have paid the ultimate price. The standard of living, purchasing power, life savings, and quality of life of ordinary Ghanaians is depreciating by the day. Many are terrified that tomorrow may be worse as they struggle with uncertainty of our current situation. The signs of this crisis have been there since 2018, when alarming increases in our public debt levels and huge expenditure overruns became apparent. The NDC did not keep quiet. When it became obvious that we were heading for the ditch, but was far removed from reality, all these fell on deaf ears. Government became ever more brazen and reckless and moved mismanagement of this economy to dizzying heights in the run-up to the 2020 elections, amidst boastful claims that they were the best managers of the economy. Immediately after the elections, it became clear that we had been thrown into a bottomless pit of debt round our necks, staggering budget deficits, and a rapidly deteriorating fiscal position. The looming disaster at the time required an urgent response. And even as the crisis deepened, earlier this year, we in NDC besieged government with many prescriptions which I articulated in the Ghana at the Crossroads speech in May this year. And I urge government to seek multilateral assistance urgently. Among others, I also called on President Akufo-Addo to expeditiously convene a national dialogue on the economy, at which the best and brightest minds of our nation would be brought together to huddle and formulate a robust response to the challenges confronting us. I guess that is too late now. I re-echo demands by Ghanaians that the finance minister and the chair of the economic management team, who have been primarily responsible for this economic catastrophe, should be relieved of their positions to breed confidence among stakeholders and offer the economy a new lease of life. I asked the President to deploy some of the arsenals from the presidential toolkit and reshuffle his government to inject innovation and freshness of thinking into the running of the country. I also asked that the President address the nation to inform the public about the specific steps that he was intending to take to turn the condition around. This address was meant to calm the anxiety of the investor community and rally Ghanaians behind any such effort that he was willing to take. Regrettably, the President dug in and failed to do any of these suggestions. Let me note that since this event was advertised last weekend, I have been made aware that the President intends to address the nation sometime over this weekend. It is my prayer that his words would strike the right chords in the hearts of Ghanaians. Since my speech in May, the situation has spiraled out of control and the effects have been Ghanaians continue to suffer. There is a desperate attempt to shift blame. In almost robotic fashion, governments and its hirelings recite the same verse against the COVID disease and promote post-pandemic recovery. There has been a desperate attempt at political equalization by propagandists and supporters of this government, claiming that all political parties are the same, subtly suggesting and attempting to create the impression that no other person could have done better in these circumstances, or that all political parties in Ghana cannot be differentiated ideologically. For the avoidance of doubt, we in the NDC what he has done. And even society would never have allowed us to do some of the things that they have done. We've had our own set of challenges in government, but nothing we did or the outcome thereof has come anywhere near close to the finance minister relying on his data bank works ministry has been left to run this economy because the so-called solid economic management team over the last several years has been unable to call the president's cousin to order when he embarked on a reckless borrowing spree, when he embarked on indiscriminate closure of indigenous banks and financial institutions, and when he embarked on creative economic presentation of statistics to make our situation look rosier than the reality. We're in this mess because we have a president who fails to take responsibility and has instead left the nation on autopilot. As excellent. Last December, The President is on record as having said, "The present economic mess is not my fault." Refuses to accept responsibility. For emphasis, the biggest blame for the current tragic situation in which we find ourselves lies with the very people charged with managing the country, and not with the pandemic, not with any war in any country, as has been unprofessionally posited. And Ghana has been treated as an experimental playground or a family heirloom. And I regret to say this was all avoidable. Things could have been different, and I've remained very convinced that they could have been different. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to restate what I have said over the years. We are ever ready and willing to share pragmatic steps that will help put our nation back on track. Ideally, in situations like this, backroom channels of communications should exist between the ruling party and the opposition to allow for exchange of views on important matters of national interest to the benefit of Ghanaians. Unfortunately, that has not been the case under this government, for which reason we in NDC are compelled on almost all occasions to engage the people of Ghana directly on some of the things we believe ought to be done to mitigate the untold suffering of our people and get our economy back on track. Even though government has requested for an IMF program, the lateness of the decision and the extent of economic decay means that in the meantime, there's the need to stem the rapid decline in the economy, and I intend today to dwell more on solutions, as the state of the economy and the current fallouts are very well known to all of us. We have already put out an 11-point proposal that could have arrested the decline before we got to this critical point. Many of these proposals were outlined in my Ghana at the Crossroads speech in June and are still relevant and can be implemented, even though belatedly, to help address the problems we face. Many months after government reluctantly decided to request an IMF program, it has failed to coordinate and communicate